Olá, Tiago Faria.pt, e este é o quinto vídeo de uma série de entrevistas que eu estou a fazer a diversos especialistas em marketing digital, assim como empreendedores portanto, pessoas que gerem negócios de locais de sucesso. Eu hoje tenho como convidado o Michael Killen. O Michael é uma pessoa que eu já sigo também há vários meses. Ele tem inspirado bastante no seu conteúdo. Ele partilha várias dicas sobre como criar funis de vendas e automação de email marketing. E é um convidado muito especial que vamos tirar bastante valor daqui de hoje da sua entrevista. O Michael ajuda marketers que têm funis de marketing a atingir o seu potencial máximo e já ajudou mais de 2.000 estudantes a vender os seus funis aos seus clientes. A sua empresa chama-se Sell Your Service, foi fundada em 2016 e desde então já criou uma imensidão de conteúdo que eu tenho acompanhado com muita atenção, ajudando marketers a vender mais serviços de marketing digital e a ensinar técnicas de vendas. Ele é o autor do livro From Single to Scale e atualmente está a escrever o seu terceiro livro, How to Sell a Marketing Funnel for $25,000. Ele tem o objetivo ambicioso de incluir em todas as escolas do mundo a disciplina de vendas, que é algo que considero essencial para qualquer pessoa e que eu concordo a 100%. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Not at all. It's a pleasure to be here, Diego. Thanks for having me on.
Brilliant. So I would love to start with your background. I start always this interview with when it all started.
Cool.
So just tell me briefly, how was your, academic background? What did you study before this all started? Just a bit of your background.
Yeah, so I actually trained to be a chef originally. And I did that from, started at the age of 16 and ended up working in France for a little bit. And I couldn't hack it because it's a lot of hard work, as I'm sure anyone who's been in catering or, kitchens will know. So I was like, well, I really want to get a job with air conditioning. So I ended up going to get a degree in marketing, actually product design with marketing from a place called Southampton Solent University. And from there, we kind of got more into the marketing, but ever since an early age, I was always interested in marketing. I think bizarrely, my mum kind of recalls that when all the other kids wanted to be firefighters or doctors, I was specific in saying I wanted to be the CMO of IBM. Like I was really specific about that. And I don't know why. I guess
why IBM?
Yeah. I guess because at the time IBM, even when I was small, they represented a huge part of the market. They were like this behemoth of industry. And I think at the time, my mum worked in sales. My stepfather was in banking, and I guess I just must have been exposed to that.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't necessarily say that I had an entrepreneurial kind of. I didn't even really know that was an option. And I think it's great that now it's more accepted to think I want to start a business.
It's even a fashion now.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah, you could argue it is fashionable, but I don't know what it's like when you were at school. If you were to say to someone, I want to start a business, you're either going to be like a tradesperson, like a bricklayer or a house builder, but normal people don't start businesses. It's only something you can do if you've got a lot of money. And so, and it was never really encouraged or even an option. So eventually, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, I ended up starting a business and thinking, why don't more people do this?
And exactly at what point did you realize you wanted to start helping businesses grow as a career?
Yeah, I think when I began to understand what marketing can do to a company, that's when I kind of thought, this is really useful. I like doing it. I worked for some very big corporate companies. I worked for some big data companies, some car hire companies, insurance companies, all these kind of big global corporations. Mm-hmm. And it was a bit like, well, they're so big that they kind of work no matter what. Even when they fail, they tend to kind of have enough momentum just because of their size. I was actually made redundant I was the head of digital for a data company, and I was made redundant. And I was like, well, I don't want to go back into work because I can't trust that kind of larger corporate system. We were talking before this call, like about, how restrictive that can be. And so I was like, well, I must be able to teach people what I was doing for these bigger companies. That can't be that different. And in truth, actually, it is so radically different that if I'd have known the gap, it would have put me off, I think, because corporate businesses rely on 10, 20-year-old practices. You know, we look to a lot of these corporate businesses and think, oh, they know what they're doing. And I think smaller businesses, even the micro businesses like 1, 5, 10 people, have got a massive advantage over some of these larger companies now. And eventually we kind of went down this rabbit hole of, this is really what I want to do. And I think around 2000, maybe even, it wasn't even that long ago, 2017 is where I really like doubled down and committed to my very specific vision of actually helping people sell products for a higher price. So even that really specific little niche within the marketing agencies. So yeah, probably about 2017 is where I really doubled down and committed to it.
Brilliant. But before that, throughout were you progressing? You were learning all these things. What do you consider to be the major mistakes you made in the beginning of your career, and what kind of lessons did you learn that we used in the future?
Yeah, this is a good question, because I think a lot of the mistakes I think people think they make are things like, you know, they should have gone for a website, they shouldn't have chosen this supplier, and I found I think one of the biggest mistakes that I made was listening to a potential customer or a prospect, and them saying, oh, we're really passionate about this project, we've got loads of energy, we just haven't got the budget, we haven't got a lot of money. And I used to think, as a lot of people did, I'm sure, think, oh, well, they don't have the budget, but I really like them, they're nice people, I like their business, I like their product, I believe in what they're doing, I'm sure we can work something out later. And the problem is that unless people are willing to put up a decent sum of money to start with to support me, I can't pay the bills with their passion. That gets you into a bit of a cycle of only working with kind of quite low value customers. They might be passionate, that's fine, but I have to grow my business. And unless you're willing to front, you know, a decent sum of money, I can't really help you. So that was a big lesson, and kind of being comfortable turning away clients. And as soon as I learned to turn away clients, I was more likely to find better ones. It was a really bizarre, it's kind of like, you know, chicken and egg, because you're afraid to turn away clients because you don't have any better ones, but actually what attracted the better ones was turning away them. And I also think, and kind of in the same vein, startups, we're a startup, we're starting a new piece of funnel software, you know. I think it's very easy to work with a business that has funding, but working with customers or businesses that have sales is much more important. Even if you have got funding, and we've worked with some big startup companies, you know, like kind of 7, 8, 9, in some cases, figure invested businesses, and they still don't have customers. It's really expensive to find customers for them. Even though they've got a lot of money, that's fine, but they're still really impatient. They're like, yeah, but we've got all this money, why aren't people coming to us? And they want explosive growth like Lyft. And
they kind of focus their sales on convincing investors to bet
you
on
are
the company,
100%
right?
correct.
But not on making money. Exactly.
Absolutely, they do. They basically create, and you're spot on there. They create their entire pitch around, we need more money. And I'm like, just go out and start selling some product. Just go out there and start having conversations with customers and start selling, because
it's so different for the consumer.
It's completely different. And I think we worked with too many startups to work with. So now we only work with businesses who have customers, because it's 100 times easier. It's 100 times more effective. And it's more fun. I think I like working with customers. I think that's more fun. Yeah. Those were some of the big mistakes. Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So a bit backwards in 2012, you founded Devon Digital Design, right?
Yeah.
Which was an online digital marketing agency for businesses. Can you just talk a bit about that experience, how it went?
Yeah. So like I said, I started it after I was made redundant. And at the time I was like, well, I just want to build websites for people, and we'll do a bit of graphic design, we'll do social media, and we'll do SEO, and we'll do email, and we'll do copywriting, and graphic design, right? And you do everything, even though it was just me, we do everything. And what ended up happening is I became so frustrated with working with low value clients, customers who thought that £1,000 or $1,000 was a lot of money for a website. So I kind of started, I kind of flipped my model, and I worked with Troy Dean at WP Elevation. So
Yes.
I was a very early adopter of the WP Elevation program. And we kind of worked out a business model, and all I ended up doing was installing opt-in forms using opt-in Monster onto blog posts. So that's all I did. And I was like, well, I have to work with them, therefore, with customers who have got something to offer, their opt-ins, and who have blog traffic. So I was like, well, that narrows down who I'm going to work with. And as soon as I started doing that, I started ranking for some really big terms. At one point, if you Googled digital marketing UK, digital marketing England, it was me, just like right at the top.
Whoa.
I think marketing funnels in England or marketing funnels UK, I think we were right at the top. And it was it began ranking for some terms that were frankly above my pay grade. And it was because we were really focused, and that helped us basically attract clients that we wanted to work with. So from focusing down, we became way more profitable because I was only delivering 2 or 3 products basically, or my team were developing 2 or 3 products. So yeah, it's good. I it was started in my mum's spare room. We didn't have have an office or a co-working space at the time. I had my old work laptop.
So you worked on your own for how long until you started hiring someone? Or
probably, so what was that? Probably about 3 years. But that's not necessarily indicative of where the business was. As soon as we narrowed down our offering and focused on a niche, we hired within about 4 months. It was actually the reason we didn't hire is because I thought, well, I don't have any money. And the reason I didn't have any money is because I was focusing on the wrong clients, so it became this horrible cycle. But as soon as I was like, actually, I'm not going to do any of that, I'm just going to do this one thing.
Yes.
We began hiring very quickly because I knew how to hire people, because we only had one checklist that they had to go through per product. So it became much quicker to hire as soon as we started focusing.
Got it. Okay. And throughout that experience you had in that agency, what were the main mistakes that these small businesses do when they purchase online? My
customers?
Yeah, the customers you worked with in your agency, what are the biggest mistakes they do when they approach this online thing, or they ignore these things? Or
and there are a few. I think one of the biggest ones, and I'm sure you'll have seen this, is if you listen to the SEO expert will tell you that SEO is what you should do. The social media person will tell you that social media is what you should do. Paid ads is what paid ads should do.
Yes.
And if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And a lot of customers will say, I want more customers. I want more revenue, more cash flow. Typically, those are the big 3. Maybe I want more leads. When you dig a bit deeper, you realize that one customer wanting new customers because they want to take on more investment and scale their business is very different to a business who wants more customers because they want to sell the business. So ultimately, you end up thinking, you don't need SEO or social media. We need to think of a way to be able to get you to exit the business or make you attractive to investors or whatever the longer term goal is. The second thing, I think, so not being clear on really why you want to do anything, what's actually the end goal. But the other thing is not being willing to invest the right amount of money. If you're serious about growing your business, there's a term, I think it's something along the lines of elastic resistance. If you're on one side of the room, a room or a gym or whatever, and on the other side is a button, and if you press that button, you'll get whatever it is you want, like a better body, more money, whatever. If you run as fast as you can, as hard as you can, you've got all these elastic bands holding you back. It doesn't matter how close you get to that button. If you don't touch it, all of that energy has been wasted. So when people talk about their marketing budget, they say, oh, well, $5,000 is a lot of money. $25,000 is a lot of money. $100,000, $2 million is a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That might be true. But unless you're willing to invest over a certain amount, you won't get results. 10 grand might be wasted, but 25 grand might generate a return on investment. So unless you're really serious, and it's not about trusting the agency, it's not about whether they'll deliver the right results. I think there's other factors at play. Unless you're willing to, frankly, put on your big boy pants and put £1,000 a week down for advertising, no, of course you're never going to see any results. It's like saying, well, I go to the gym once a month and I don't see any results. Well, no, of course you don't, because you're not committed to it. You're not putting enough in. So it's almost irrelevant of the tools and the processes and the techniques. Unless you're willing to commit with a decent budget, don't bother doing anything, because it will be a waste then. I think a £500 website is a waste compared to spending 50 grand on a website. You're more likely to get return on investment. And there's other areas, like we could go off on tangents about that. But when people refused to, and I would get that all the time, they'd be like, wow, 25 grand's a lot of money.
It's expensive.
And I'd be like, yeah, it is expensive. What else? Silence. What else do you want me to say about it? Everything's expensive. My car's too expensive. My house is too expensive. The camera that we're filming this on was £300 when I first bought it. This microphone was $200. Everything's expensive. But if you're wanting to play the game and not just break even and do it for the sake of it, you'll buy it. And it's funny because as soon as you look at something like a house, people will say, 200 grand, that's good for this area. That's a decent sum. Whereas 80,000 might be a steal or expensive somewhere else. But when it comes to growing their business, people are like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to spend that much money. I'm like, well, I can't help you then. You're laughing because you've seen this before. Right?
I'm loving it. And I'm sure you have a bigger list of objections that you listen throughout your career. I would love to hear if you have like 3 or 4 more.
Yeah, like the expense. And
how do you overcome them? That will be more interesting for me.
Okay, yeah. So in my opinion, when someone says that's very expensive or we don't have the money, that's not an objection, in my opinion. If we're being specific, an objection is when the customer says no because ... No, I don't want to buy from you because I haven't seen any evidence that you've done this before.
I don't trust you.
I don't trust you, essentially. Yes, they want to see a portfolio. So we'll come on to that in a minute. But when someone says, oh, this is too expensive, that's their problem. There's nothing you can do about that. You can't do anything about the economy. So when people go, well, that's too expensive, they want you to say, well, let me drop down the price. And don't. It's not an objection. You agree with them. So the first way you turn the biggest objection of being expensive is to go, oh, this is really expensive. You say, oh, no, I agree. It is expensive. Anyway, sign here and we can get started today. They didn't say no. They didn't say no. They just said, this is expensive. And people put this word no in. Like, they haven't said that. My neighbor, the other day, had to get his whole bathroom redone. He was like, oh man, it's costing me about 20 grand. It's expensive. And I was like, you still bought it though, right? It's like, yeah, of course I did. Like, right. So you complain it's expensive, but you still bought it. Other objections are things like, I don't trust you. That's a big one. And the way that you deal with it, with objections, generally speaking, is first of all, agreeing with the customer. And they go, look, I don't trust you. You haven't given me any case studies, any testimonials, any portfolio work. I haven't seen any blog content. I haven't seen a book. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But you agree with them. You go, I completely agree. You've got no reason to trust me at the moment because I haven't given you any of that. If I could give you some testimonials, or if I could give you some blog content that proves we know what we're doing, or the process, or if I took you through it, or case studies or whatever, would that help? They go, yeah, that sounds great. Fantastic. Sign here. I'll send over some testimonials. Agree with them. It's the biggest mistake people make is they disagree. They go, no, you should trust me. I've got loads of things to trust. Or another one is my nephew can do this, or the guy down the road can do this or whatever. And you agree with them. You go, yeah, he probably could. I guarantee, yeah, he probably could. He won't do it to my standard. And that's fine. And if you want to work with someone like that, if you believe that you can put someone like that, but I would argue that you're not talking to them right now. And another thing you can do is you can kind of flip it and you can ask them and you say, why would you work with me over your nephew? And they'll give you a couple of reasons like, well, you're more experienced. My nephew isn't experienced. And you go, fantastic, sign here. And the most important part of turning any objection is to say, great, let's sign here and get started. Most people just want to be heard. They want to be acknowledged. You shouldn't be arguing with them. They're just telling you how they feel. And when you begin to agree with them, you're showing that you're an agreeable partner and you want to help them. as opposed to a lot of salespeople or business owners who actually
confronting.
And it blows my mind. You're absolutely right. It becomes confronting, and I'm like, that's not. You don't reach an agreement.
Point of it all, right? Just leave the room.
Yeah, if you're just going to argue. So yeah, it's more about agreeing with people and remember what the call to action is. Remember what the close is. I agree. Let's sign. Let's move over that. Or if I could give you that, would you like to go ahead with the deal? Sign here. It's way easier than people give it credit for.
Fantastic. And based on that, how did you? So you learned a lot through all these objections and overcoming them, and who you want to work with, who you don't want to work with. So how did you decide who are the ideal clients that you want to work with? What were the main requirements, and why were they important to you?
Yeah. So one of the mistakes that I was making is I didn't have a niche. And I was trying to work with anyone and everyone. And as soon as I decided that I wanted to work in what we call my sweet spot, so it was something that I was good at, which is installing and creating blog post opt-ins.
Okay.
And people wanted to pay me for it, and I was good at it, and I enjoyed it. So it's kind of sits in the middle of those three things. I made a big list. And at the moment, it's email marketing. I'm good at email marketing. I like doing email marketing, and people value email marketing. At the time, it was blog post opt-ins. And the way that it was explained to me is you can help anyone, but you can't help everyone. You know, none of us are the Monsanto Corporation or the GlaxoSmithKline corporations. We don't have the resources to help hundreds of millions of people. However, we can add massive value to very specific groups of people. So I looked at installing blog post opt-ins or whatever it might be. Maybe it's you are a running coach and you think, well, I really like helping people who get back to running after an injury, for example, or you're a graphic designer who particularly enjoys creating physical kind of print media, you know, like really small little leaflets like this, maybe. This is from Amy Woods, by the way, of Content 10X. She's done a great job there. She'd be good to have on the call, actually. I'll get you in contact with her.
Thank you so much.
Whatever it is, and you then think, well, what would they need to have, and who would benefit the most from me working with them? What kind of product would benefit the most? What type of business would benefit the most? And it's a bit of a brainstorming exercise. But if we just take blog post opt-ins, a business with traffic currently coming to their website and current blog posts who don't have enough email leads, that sounds like someone who would benefit than someone who is just starting their blog.
Yes. So
already we begin to get these kind of characteristics.
You could add that much value to those clients, right? Absolutely.
It's similar to, I use a lot of physical health metaphors when I try to explain stuff. If you're currently running a marathon and you are able to run a marathon, it's easier for me to train you to get a better time, as opposed to if you're running your first marathon. The gulf is too big. And yeah, for other people, maybe people who have never run a marathon before is their sweet spot. But it's easier, in my opinion, to get someone 1% better than to get someone 50% better or 20% better. So I think, well, what are the characteristics they've got? And Frank Kern has a great question, which is, if you could only get paid after the client gets results, what do they need to have to make your job easier? I was like, well, they need to have a blog post. They need to have regular blog content. They need to have traffic already. They need to have a CRM system. And as soon as I made lists of stuff like that, I pretty much just went out and started asking people, do you know any businesses that have a blog that need more email leads? And I couldn't believe how quickly, and we've done that repeatedly. We've done that with new course-based websites. We've done that with new CRM systems, with LMS systems. It's just going out and asking people, do you know anyone who has ... these characteristics?
In your own network, or
in my own network, outreach, networking events, ads to an extent, because you can target kind of interests and stuff like that. So it becomes very easy to start finding those clients when you know their characteristics. So that's how I did it. I looked at, what do I want to do first? And then who would benefit from that? Like, who would actually get results from that more than anybody else? And typically that's a pretty good place to start, I think.
That's brilliant. Knowledge bombs dropped. Thank you so much, Michael.
I hope so. This is just stuff that I learned kind of the hard way. This is helping in any way, as long as it makes
creating shortcuts for us.
Pretty much, yeah.
So based on everything you said, what are, in your opinion, like the top 3 things that a small business must focus to grow the business through the digital medium?
Yeah. So this is kind of, although my new book is specifically about selling marketing funnels and selling high ticket products.
Yes.
Some of the ideas kind of transgress that. First of all, you have to have a niche. You have to have a clearly defined niche. In my opinion, that's non-negotiable nowadays. You have to have that. You need to have a scalable product. So what I mean by that is most businesses constantly say, I need more leads. I go, great. I could find you 1,000 leads tomorrow with their credit card ready. They want to buy from you. How does that make you feel? And most businesses will go, I don't want that many customers. I'm like, right. Well, then there's a problem there, isn't there? Because I'm going to create a series of marketing systems for you. And if you can't handle the number of leads that I send to you, there's a barrier. There's literally a limit to the amount of business that you can take on. And we had this problem with an insurance customer. It's my favorite ever case study. It's my favorite ever testimonial. It was an email from him. His name was Mark. And he was furious with us because he said, you've got to stop these email campaigns and these ad campaigns because our telephone guys cannot deal with it quickly enough. You're actually sending us too many leads. I was like, this is good. I'm fine. Yeah, exactly. So you need to have a scalable product. And that's unfortunately not something that we can, cover in a 45-minute call. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've got content about that out there. There's loads of content out there about that. But the 3 kind of roughly rules are, can someone or something else deliver it for you? Can you handle 1,000 leads tomorrow? And is the process repeatable? So you need to have those 3 in your products. Digital is fantastic. Digital is infinitely scalable. We could have 1 billion people watch this interview and you and I won't have to do any more work because of it, right? YouTube takes care of that. Mm-hmm. But then people have these beautiful, infinitely scalable pieces of content and platforms. And then it comes back to a lead generation or a contact page where a human being or even the business owner has to deal with it. So I'm like, well, you don't deserve having more leads because you can't handle having more leads. So you have to have a scalable product. And in any business can have that now, especially in the kind of this digital space. And the third one, just like you're doing, just like I'm doing, is you've got to create content. You have to create content now. You were talking before just how quickly it kind of snowballs out when you start putting this stuff out there. Every business in the world can create useful, valuable content. And if you combine it with a very specific niche, you begin climbing some very kind of creative Google search terms. You begin building a social following. You begin building an audience. You become known for something.
And have you noticed that some businesses really, they focus on content, but they focus on just me, showing we do this, we're good, we're fantastic, our service. Do you have any opinion about that and how to we could overcome this?
Yeah, I see that a lot. I have a habit of, if I go to a website agency or a marketing agency and they say, sign up for our newsletter, I'll always sign up for it because I want to see what type of content they push out.
Yes.
There's one in my local area, which is, in my opinion, they really need to change what they're sending out. They build e-commerce websites, right? Mm-hmm. It's not specific, it's not niched, fine, but they do write blog content about once a month, which in my opinion is not enough.
No.
Right? So, but even the content they do write, they'll say, here's how WooCommerce can add webhooks to any automation platform. I'm like, if I'm an e-commerce customer, I don't care about that. My developer might care about that. You might care about that. I don't. Mm-hmm. As an e-commerce business, I want you to tell me how to reduce refunds. I want you to tell me how to start selling internationally. I want you to tell me all these things that I want in my future.
Yes.
I don't care about the website. I don't care if it's WooCommerce. I don't care if it's Shopify, whatever. And I think, and again, you mentioned that people talk about themselves. So they'll say, oh, we've won this award. And that's fine. If it happens, great. Mm-hmm. But your content needs to help me. You need to give away the farm. You need to talk about, let's think of a niche right now. So if we have video creators based in Portugal, that's a pretty good place to start, right? I would say, non-English speaking video content creators who interview, marketing experts, right? So there's an expert, there's a niche right there. That's who we want to help. Your biggest problems are securing interviews, getting enough views on your videos, and monetizing those videos. That's what I should be. If I wanted to go after that niche, you know, of you, I want to talk about things that are useful. And I think, right. And there's no place for content outside of that anymore. And people who say, oh, I'm not really a writer, I don't want to create content. I'm like, well, you need to pack up your business then, because that is the only type of marketing and sales left. I can either go to you, or I can go to someone who is creating a lot of content. Like, who are you going to choose? So yeah, it's not even a tactic now. It's part of your business. You
have to, yeah, exactly.
You have to, yeah, absolutely. And anyone can do it. And again, we don't have time on this call, but
yeah, everyone has a phone. Everyone has a phone.
You're absolutely right. And start talking about things that are useful to your audience. You know.
Exactly, and you have an amazing sentence that it was you sell futures and not features.
That's right. Sell futures, not features. Yeah,
encompasses everything that you need to know. It's like
yeah. Talk about in the future, like one of our customers, what she does. She builds marketing automation funnels, and she's a very talented copywriter and a great designer. But what she actually does is she helps working mums who have set up a business finish work by 3 o'clock. So they can pick up their kids from school.
Wow.
Marketing automation isn't mentioned. Funnels isn't mentioned. Marketing isn't mentioned. Copy isn't mentioned. Because what she does is help mums basically finish their work. So, of course, she builds automation processes to help them do that and scale out their content. What she does, the features, are not the same as the future. So you sell that future to the mum of, you can go ahead and pick up your kids from school now. You can meet them from school because all of your work is done by 3 p.m. That's powerful. That's something you can sell, and that's content that you can create, as opposed to we build marketing automation funnels to help scale out. It's like, it's so boring. So yeah, exactly. And we're in the industry and we get bored by it. So, you know, it's
that is brilliant. She did something that most people don't do. Is that she analyzed her audience thoroughly, like. Deeply, she knows what they feel, what they need, what they want.
Yeah. And you know, it was a big revelation for her, because she realized that's what she has gone through. She's experienced that. She knows it. She's good at it. She likes talking to that audience. Who benefits the most from automation work in her eyes? Busy mums who are starting up a new business, and their biggest problem is feeling guilty about, you know, not meeting their kids. I'm like, well, that's who you go after then. And it's much more enticing than talking about the marketing. And like I said, anyone could do this. Furniture creators, people who manufacture video cameras, lighting directors, you know, whatever it is that you do. If you're smart and you spend the time focusing on a niche and then creating content for that niche, you will define a market and you will explode. Like you have to do it now. It's non-negotiable.
Genius.
Yeah, she's a smart lady who did it. Yeah.
And so you and I are both fans of email marketing. Do you still think it's the #1 platform for sales? Is it dead, like so many people say?
No, definitely not. Not even. And have you seen the posts now that are like, funnels are dead, marketing funnels are dead?
Yes.
And I'm like, of course they are. And it's all about the flywheel now and whatever the next thing is. I think it's very right. Yeah, that is. Then like, I remember when people said that SEO is dead. That was 2013 is when I first heard that, and I was like, you're so unbelievably wrong about that. And of course, social media is dead. I'm like, where's your evidence for that? YouTube is dead. Where's your evidence for that?
Because I don't use it anymore.
Right, exactly, right. I think it's people forget that there's a big difference between. First of all, there's a big difference between the overall like strategy of social, SEO, email, whatever, and a particular tool, right? Yes, MailChimp at the moment has got a real problem because it doesn't integrate with Shopify anymore. They're hemorrhaging subscribers. It's bad news for them. MailChimp as a tool might die. Email is not going away anywhere. Facebook ads are overall becoming more expensive. Online paid advertising isn't going to die. So yeah, the tool might die, fine. Even beyond all that, email as a platform, the ROI is way higher than any other platform available at the moment for a number of reasons. First of all, it's your data. if ActiveCampaign disappears tomorrow, and it could do, I've at least got an Excel spreadsheet of all of my data, my contacts, and I can manually email them. If I had to, I can open up Newton and manually email them and sell to them.
It's an asset you own completely.
It's an asset, absolutely. It's an asset you own. If Facebook disappears tomorrow, that's my group gone. That's my retargeting audiences gone. It's my page likes gone. It's my insights. A lot of that is gone now, completely controlled by somebody else. So for that one reason, email is still the number one tool. And I was asked this question recently. If I had to get rid of either my website or my CRM system, I'd get rid of the website. I'd rather keep my CRM system and continue to email people and communicate with them, because I can replace a website much easier than I can replace email data. And I think people like to say email is dead, first of all, for kind of clickbait-based titles, you know, but also because they're afraid of the hard work it takes to build an email list. So they convince themselves, oh, but it's dead. I need to focus on something else. I need to focus on Instagram followers or whatever whatever they want to do. But no, if you're serious about running a business, you need to have an email list and you need to regularly email people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And does it also include marketing automation? Do you think a business should include that in their marketing strategy?
Yeah, it's a difficult kind of area, because marketing automation won't create. We're kind of almost getting into a bit of like motivation and, you know, human being stuff here. Marketing automation doesn't create productivity. If let's say that you regularly email your list, right? Like I do every single day. And I think, okay, well, is there a way to replace that and for me to just write the email and another automation system take care of the deliverability? Is there a way of every time I write a new blog post, something else taking that and sending it? If I'm already doing that manually, that's a pretty good process to automate. I think it becomes a bit complex when people try to automate something they're not doing already. A good example of this would be one of our customers. They had customers and prospects manually email them saying, I want a quote for this particular service. And they would manually send a quote back. They were doing that manually, sometimes hundreds of times a day. We said, well, we can automate and streamline all of this for you. And it literally changed their business overnight, but it's because they were doing it manually. If you try and put automation into a business that's not doing something manually, they're not emailing people already, it's actually just going to add to the workload. It will only get you what you're already getting. So as a small business owner, maybe in my store, like take cafes, for example, I have an iPad and I say, would you want to sign up for one of our, like points cards or get a free coffee on your 10th coffee? If I'm doing that manually on my iPad and then sending them deals, that would be a fantastic place to start, because I'm doing that manually now, as opposed to thinking, well, automation is the answer to something I'm not already doing. Does that make sense if I explain that okay?
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Brilliant. I completely agree with that. We're already a bit out of time. Let's go on now to let's go to 2016.
Great, man.
The year where you sold your agency, the Devon. What was the name again? Sorry,
Devon Digital Design.
Digital. Yeah. Devon is your region, right?
The county. Yeah,
the county in the UK.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that experience and how it changed your life? It was a massive thing to happen to you so early.
Yeah, we basically landed some really big deals along with my business partner Mark, who is out in Montana, who I'm still connected with.
Okay.
A media company basically approached us and said, would you like to sell, your processes, sell your business? And at the time, I was falling out of love with.
First of all, how did they find you? Basically, if you know by any.
Yeah, that would be through Mark. Mark actually was my business partner. He's got a lot of experience in way bigger areas, like huge multi-million national kind of dollar deals and stuff, way above like my level of thinking.
Good.
And he got talking, and one thing led to another, and he actually helped broker the deal. His company was a big part of that, and they said, we want to take your processes on, your team, your style, your brand, and all of that. And it was technically what they call an earn out. So if we have reached certain goals, then I would be paid and stuff. And it wasn't a huge deal. We were doing pretty well, but what they were buying was the processes, and they were also buying I believe, the scalability of the business. We literally had a product that just made money. It's still out there now. There's a lot of insurance companies using our products and a lot of LMS companies using our products. And I basically sold it. It kind of was very bizarre. And then I was kind of sat around like, I don't know what I want to do now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, I was kind of like, well, now what? And apparently that's quite common. I was like, so I spoke to my mate Troy at WP Elevation, by which point I was kind of doing some work for them and I was coaching with them. And he said, well, come out to Miami and talk to our guys. If you've got spare time now, because you're not doing client work, come and talk to our guys. So I went out there, and the only question I was asked was, how do you sell a website, or specifically, how do you sell a marketing funnel for $25,000? And I was like, well, that's easy. I'll show you how to do that. And we just got on the whiteboard and I talked them through it. And then that turned into a series of webinars. And then that turned into our first kind of free course. And bit by bit, I began putting Sell Your Service as it is now together. And I was like, well, I'm going to teach marketing agencies how to sell marketing funnels for 5 figures, as well as raise their prices and, attract 5-figure clients. And from there, that's kind of where it grew, was really just people asking me, well, how do you do it? And I took it for granted. I was like, Marte, that's easy. I can show you how to do that. So that's pretty much where we focus all our time and effort now.
And you already knew how to select a specific niche. Yeah, you were very specific about that, right?
Absolutely. It's the first part is defining your price and saying, yeah, I do want to sell something for 25 grand or 250 grand or 1.2 million. Set the price first. And the second thing you've got to do is you have to invent a niche. You categorically have to go after and create a niche for yourself. Otherwise, it becomes very, very, very expensive to find customers.
Very true.
And
a big part of your strategy to grow Sell Your Service is content.
Yep.
What is basically, if you can talk a bit about your strategy, how you thought about it and how you're implementing it?
Yeah. So first of all, we have 5 core topics. Typically, I know that my guys are all marketing agencies who want to sell marketing funnels, right? That's who they are. Their big goal is typically they want to be a 6-figure business usually. So I know roughly just even a little bit about that. I actually know obviously a lot more, but I was like, that's pretty much who I'm writing for. Therefore, we have 5 topics. So I focus on sales. I focus on building marketing funnels. I focus on money or pricing. I focus on motivation, like as human beings, and I focus on niching. And all of my content will focus around one of those 5 core topics. So when I create a blog post or a video or a webinar or a book or whatever, it will typically fall into one of those content silos. I'll make sure that we produce one blog post per week. At one point in 2016 to 2017, I did 1 blog post a day. I just wrote every single day for a year, which was exhausting, but it was very good for us. It built a lot of credibility with people. And then similarly with the videos, I think I did Miles Beckler's 100 video challenge. I did 1 video every single day, and it works. It helped me. It helped clarify my message, clarify how I create videos, streamlined a lot of that process. Now we have 3 videos a week minimum, a podcast every single week, and a blog post, as well as usually 1 webinar a month-ish, a coaching call, a lot of social content. And the reason why I can do all of this is because my product is very scalable. The products I sell on the back end, I don't have to deliver. So I can focus exclusively on building content at the front. And the reason that I divide them into those 5 topics is because I'll have a lead magnet or a gift or a content upgrade or whatever people call them that fits within one of those topics. So if I'm talking about niching, we have our webinar. We're about to release a machine, like an automated machine that shows you what your niche should be. And I'll say, if you're interested in this blog post on the top 5 niches to choose within the cooking industry, or if I watch a video on like, here's why you should choose a niche in 2019, I'll just point people to that 1 lead magnet. And it means that I just focus on creating content because I know that I've got 5 lead magnets, 1 of which sits inside each content silo. And it means that I don't have to, I can just leave that. And it means it's all done with categories. And again, automation. That means that whenever I create a new piece of content, I don't have to worry about the lead magnet because it's topic specific inside of the silo that we're that we've created. And that's pretty much my strategy, is just to try to flood the market.
Yeah. And one quick question. Do you create unique content for text, video, audio, or do you create one piece of content and then repurpose for the rest?
Yeah, so Amy Woods from Content 10X, she has shown me the light in terms of repurposing content. So repurposing content, I think, is a bit of a double-edged sword, because I think the concept of taking a video and turning it into a podcast and then transcribing it and editing it and turning it into a blog post and then an email, in theory, sounds easy, but it is very time intensive.
Yes.
So you do need a process to do it. And at the time, I was still really figuring out, well, what's my voice? What does my brand really stand for? Who's my audience? So I would shoot a video and then write a blog post, just kind of what it was. But because my product is so scalable, I had so much more time now. Probably 3 or 4 hours of my day every single day is to do with creating content now. But it's because I know that the editing and the publishing is being taken care of, because I know that the sales on the back end are being taken care of. So while I wouldn't recommend doing that, and yet we do now, we have a content repurposing schedule and a timeline. I still think that if you're serious about doing it, you've got to learn to do it badly. And then bit by bit, you learn how to do it well later with things like repurposing.
Brilliant. And you mentioned your book, and I also mentioned it in the beginning, From Single to Scale.
Yeah.
This is something it's on my mind as well. But in your opinion, how important is it to have a book as part of your marketing strategy?
Yeah, again, critical.
Critical.
Yeah, if you have a book, you're instantly positioned as an expert, because surely only an expert would write 60,000 words, right? Or like a crazy person maybe, but even then they still sell books. Writing a book originally, From Single to Scale, my first one, was not to do with I wanted the book to make me money. I wanted the book because you don't get speaking gigs without a book.
Yes. It's like your business card.
It's basic. Well, it is my business card now, and that's what we leave with clients. And if we're talking to customers and they're in the region of like a 6-figure project, or even in some cases a 7-figure project, you will never, ever, ever do better than sending a box of 5 books to that customer to say, this is how serious we are. The process is in here. If you want us to do it, you've got to pay us 25 grand a month. It's a positioning piece that, frankly, you're already building. You've probably written 40,000 words this year alone. We're only in June at the time of recording, through emails and social posts and answering questions and talking to your sales guys and talking to your customers. You might as well have that. And it also means that when anyone says to me, Mike, how should I do this? I'm like, well, you should go ahead and buy the book. The book is designed to promote me rather than me promoting the book. I'm not an author. The book is just one of my products. But now that I've done it, I've become kind of addicted for it. And we've got like the 4th one's being written at the moment. The 2nd one's almost being published. So it's a really nice process once you get into it. Yeah, it's critical to have a book.
Brilliant. Thanks for that.
When's yours coming?
I hope so. Yeah. I'm focused on the video. I have to focus on that.
Take these interviews and your favorite sections from it. I'm not joking. Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans, is just that. It's his interviews, which he gets transcribed. He takes one core paragraph from each person and then kind of found the rough topics, transcribed it, sent it out, got their permission first, or anonymized it if they didn't want to. And there's his book. You only need 40,000 words, and 1 hour of conversation. What's this? 45 minutes. 1 hour roughly gets you 8,000 words. You'd be staggered at how quickly you can write a book if you take content you've already. Wow. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'll take note of that as well. And who do you follow online for advice and inspiration? Do you have someone you follow specifically? Do you watch a lot of people? And how have they influenced you?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't watch a huge amount of stuff anymore.
You're now a producer of content, not a consumer.
I'm a producer. I do I love Miles Beckler. You and I have him in common. I'm a huge fan of Ryan Dice and anything he puts out from Digital Marketer. Daniel Priestley at the moment is probably my #1 guy. I'm a part of his mastermind. He's an Australian guy living in the UK. He wrote a book called Oversubscribed, Key Person of Influence, 24 Assets, and Entrepreneur Revolution. There's kind of like a series of them. his stuff, in my opinion, is about as cutting edge as it gets. There's a lot of good guys out there. Mark Fontaine as well, who's a kind of a friend and colleague of mine. He runs the Service Design Show. I think if you just Google that on YouTube, he's very interesting. He's kind of at the cusp of exploding. There's a few other guys like, you know, I'm a big fan of Troy, obviously, from WP Elevation. My mate Bill Stenzel, who talks a lot about money. But the truth be told, you know, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I read a lot of books.
Yes.
Well, I'm a big fan of podcasts because I can do them in the car, you know, when I'm driving or when I'm running or whatever. But I'll have to be honest, and even as someone who creates a lot of content on an interview about creating content, as someone else who creates a lot of content, I think people really should limit the amount of content they consume and start thinking about producing more content. You're only going to get you could watch every video in the world about, you know, Grant Cardone's sales tactics, but until you're in front of someone selling to them, you haven't put anything in place. So I could list for days the people that I like to listen to, but truth be told, there's not really anyone that I consistently listen to.
Okay, you take pieces from different
Yeah,
people.
you know, I'll try and find the time, but there's some great guys out there. Miles, you're not going to go wrong with Miles, and Daniel Priestley as well, or the Dent podcast with.
I really have to get Miles on the podcast. I'm fighting for it.
Yeah,
it will happen for sure.
Yeah, excellent.
So you talked about books. Yeah. Any of those authors that you mentioned?
Yeah, Daniel Priestley. So for me, key person of influence is probably
key person.
It's a key person of influence, and the method that he goes through is probably the best model at the moment we have for explaining the next kind of 15 years of marketing and running a business, in my opinion. A lot of other people have similar models, but I just like his way that he talks, and he doesn't take himself too seriously. You know, and obviously I'm a big part of kind of his network, and I see what he does, and it's pretty cutting edge. But the model that he talks about, the 5 Ps, is probably the best model for explaining how a business should market and sell itself at the moment. Yeah, but like I said, I mean, we could do an entire episode just on the books that we like, you know, because there's so many great ones out there, you know.
Too many.
Yeah.
Mike, how can my audience know a bit more about you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so if you just Google how to sell a marketing funnel, that's me pretty much.
Number one?
Yeah, number one. Yeah, number one, sellyourservice.co.uk. Also, if you go to youtube.com/ I think Sell Your Service UK, I couldn't just get Sell Your Service, which was good. Yeah, I know, right? It's typical. And Mike_Killen on Twitter, but people can email me as well, man. Michael@sellyourservice.co.uk. I don't check my emails every day, but I do reply to every single email. That's probably the best way to find me.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you here. So many value bombs dropped in here.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. And these are good questions as well. There's an art to asking good questions of people.
Right.
You know, and I think you've thought about these as well. So I think you've done a great job with this interview. I need to go check out more of your stuff now. If you're asking this kind of stuff, I'm excited about listening to more of it.
Yeah, when Miles comes up, I'll make sure I'll send you the email. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much, Mike. Ok, esta foi então a 5ª entrevista. Muito obrigado pelo seu tempo. Foi um prazer estar consigo. Se gostou do vídeo, por favor, faça um like, subscreva o canal e vemos no próximo vídeo. Muito obrigado. Até à próxima.